What if your next car, your online order, or even your paycheck was just derailed by a tariff? Sounds dramatic? It should, because that's exactly what happened in April 2025. Welcome to Global Pulse, where we connect the dots between power plays and price hikes, politics, and your pocket. This spring, the world's two largest economies didn't just revisit their trade rivalry. They lit the fuse on a supply chain time bomb, one that exploded in slow motion across factories, shipping lanes, and your nearest retail shelf. It started with a 145% tariff wall slapped on $300 billion worth of Chinese goods. A shock move out of Washington. Beijing didn't shout. They didn't threaten. They just acted fast. Within 3 days, exports from China to the U.S. plunged 47%. Cargo stopped. Orders froze. And major American companies scrambled to keep the lights on. This wasn't a diplomatic spat. This was a full-blown commercial earthquake. China's ports, already operating at breakneck speed, suddenly turned into parking lots. From Shanghai to Shenzhen, vessels piled up, waiting with nowhere to go. On the other side of the Pacific, California's terminals looked like déjà vu from the COVID chaos. Off the coast of LA, 27 ships idled for days, with port delays stretching toward the 96-hour mark. Shipping rates? They went absolutely ballistic. A 40-foot container from China to Long Beach cost $1,950 at the start of April. 10 days later, it was nearly $7,000. That's a 250% spike in just over a week. And the pressure didn't stop at the docks. Freight forwarders, companies that manage global shipments, began pulling bookings in real time. Why? Because pricing had become so unpredictable, no one could budget cargo. Even Sinotrans, one of Asia's biggest logistics firms, said they were operating blind. And the factories? They started shutting their gates. Over 1,200 plants in Dongguan, home to everything from electronics to textiles, went quiet. And when China's manufacturing engine stops, the whole world stalls. Costco, ZTO Express, and other giants hit pause on U.S.-bound shipping. But it wasn't just a delay. They called it chaos. Back in the States, panic was setting in. Amazon, Home Depot, Tractor Supply, they all froze orders. They weren't just reacting. They were bracing. This wasn't some temporary supply glitch. It was a system-wide seizure. A supply chain heart attack with no clear cure. And just as this maritime mess took center stage, China fired another shot. A silent, precision strike aimed not at ports, but at pride. While Washington and Wall Street obsessed over cargo, Beijing made a move that barely made a sound, but hit like a freight train. China's Ministry of Commerce gave no warning, no press release. But behind closed doors, they instructed all major state-linked airlines to freeze new aircraft deliveries from Boeing. That one quiet directive? It wiped out $28.4 billion of Boeing's market value. Overnight, 84 aircraft orders disappeared from Boeing's books, including crucial models like the 737 MAX and the Dreamliner 787. No claims of safety issues. No technical red tape. Just cold silence. Analysts knew what it was. Strategic pressure. Scott Kennedy from the Center for Strategic and International Studies said it best. This isn't about performance. It's psychological warfare. And it worked. Boeing, long the crown jewel of American aerospace, was reduced to a pawn. Meanwhile, Europe's Airbus got a gift-wrap bonus. Their shares jumped more than 11% as Chinese airlines shifted loyalties westward. This wasn't tit-for-tat retaliation. It was precision, symbolic, surgical. The message from Beijing? You escalate tariffs. We escalate where it hurts the most. And they weren't done. Because just around the bend, the next target was warming up its engines. An industry that touches nearly every American household, automotive. While the world watched shipping lanes clog, the impact on the auto industry was already in motion, and it hit like a head-on collision. Retailers scrambled. Five Below scrapped $67 million worth of merchandise still in transit. Amazon told third-party sellers to stop sending Chinese inventory altogether. And consumer sentiment? It collapsed to 75.1, the worst since 2022. But the worst damage was mechanical. Ford paused 150 Lightning production in Michigan. Why? A missing microcontroller from Shenzhen. GM's Tennessee battery plant saw a 60% drop in output. Stellantis warned of looming EV delays, thanks to a shortage of key inverters. By mid-April, over 41,000 vehicles have been erased from U.S. production. Total losses? $1.6 billion. Used car prices jumped 4.1% in a week. Dealerships slashed inventory by 30% to ride out the uncertainty. Even luxury buyers weren't safe. Ford tacked $1,200 onto the Mustang Mach-E. Stellantis hiked plug-in hybrid prices by nearly 7%. And this wasn't inflation from consumer demand. This was collapse from component scarcity. Many automakers depend on China for dozens of critical parts. One missing $12 chip can freeze a $50,000 vehicle and an entire assembly line. So, can the industry pivot away from China? Not without serious whiplash. Shifting supply chains away from China sounds great, until you try it. Vietnam's ports? Over 94% capacity in April. Shipping delays stretched for a week before containers even moved. India's infrastructure is still too slow. And Mexico, the poster child for nearshoring, now sees 12-hour border waits in Laredo. Big brands are trying. Tesla started producing battery modules in Mexico, then had to rush warehouse space in Arizona. Apple's India expansion came with a catch, 14% higher defect rates than Shenzhen. Then came the next blow, this time geological. On April 12th, China restricted exports of dysprosium and terbium. These rare earths are critical for EVs, wind turbines, and defense tech. Ford warned of more EV delays. Lockheed and Raytheon lobbied the U.S. to fast-track mining permits in Canada and Australia. But here's the cold truth. 78% of U.S. rare earths still come from China. Alternative sources won't be ready until at least 2026. Just when it looked like the gridlock couldn't get worse, Geneva stepped in with a surprise. On May 11th, U.S. and Chinese negotiators announced a temporary tariff rollback. The U.S. dropped import taxes from 145% to 30%. China responded by slashing its own tariffs from 125% to 10%. Markets surged. The S&P 500 climbed 2.8%. Shipping rates dipped. Washington called it a mutual timeout. Trump declared it a total reset. But supply chain executives weren't celebrating. Blank sailings, canceled cargo trips, spiked 300% even after the truce. Retailers like Amazon and Five Below held back. Prime Day promos were reduced. Inventory for July 4th slimmed down. Because this wasn't just about cost. It was about confidence. And trust in China's just-in-time model cracked. Freight CEOs are already rewriting the playbook, building buffers, rerouting cargo, adding delay cushions. As one put it, we may reopen the lanes, but we're not driving the same route anymore. This wasn't some tariff tiff. It was a real-world shock test for global manufacturing, and the scars are still fresh. So here's the million-dollar question. Was this a turning point, or just a pause before the next blow-up? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Will automakers truly break away from China? Will this truce hold? And what needs to happen before dealership prices finally settle down? If you found this breakdown valuable, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. At Global Pulse, we decode global power plays so you can stay one move ahead. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.